It's now our privilege to welcome our very own Johny Wudel. Johny Wudel is the Vice President of Product at Weave. His background includes product development and customer experience in tech and other industries, including food and beverage and nonprofit. He has run a small business and has also worked with various Fortune 500 companies, including Google, Burger King, T-Mobile, and Under Armour. He earned his MBA from Harvard Business School and is here to give you needed tools for innovating on the customer experience. We're excited to have Johny be part of this year's summit. Here's Johny.
Thanks for that introduction. I'm super excited to be here. So today I'm going to talk about tools for innovating on the customer experience. And just by a little way of context before I jump in, I've worked with a ton of different size companies, a lot of Fortune 500 companies, either as an employee or they were my customer. And I've also worked in small business. I actually ran a small business for 6 years of my career, manufacturing frozen yogurt mixes and selling those around the world. And the commonality I've found through all these different experiences is that creating a great customer experience is how businesses succeed. And the concepts and kind of the formula to create a great customer experience is more or less the same across verticals, across size of businesses. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And the things that I'm going to talk about today really can be applied across all different verticals and all different sizes of businesses. So let's jump in. So growing up in our careers, especially if you've been involved in customer service, we've always been taught the customer is right. Customer is always right. Listen to the customer. It's kind of been pounded into our heads. Well, there's kind of a counter opposing view to that, especially in the product development world. There's a counter view that the customer maybe isn't always right, that maybe they don't actually know the answers and know what they need. And Henry Ford said, kind of supporting this, he said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses. So his point of view is that the customers actually don't know what they want. And it was his job to show them and to innovate and to give them what they wanted. Steve Jobs, who's the greatest innovator of our time, said, our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's why I never rely on market research. Our task is to read things that are not yet on the page. So how do we think about this? We've always been taught the customer is always right, but yet these amazing business leaders are saying the customers don't actually know what they want. We have to show them what they want. Well, it's not the full story. So Henry Ford, there's actually no historical attribution that credits him with this quote. We don't actually know that he said this. There's no evidence of it. And although Steve Jobs did say these quotes, he also said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology or solution. I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room. Really great products come from melding 2 points of view, the technology or business point of view and the customer point of view. You need both. Okay, so now this is really confusing. These same people said customers don't know what they want. Steve Jobs is saying you actually really need to listen to the customer and understand their experience and work backwards into the product. So is the customer always right? Well, I would propose that's actually the wrong question. What we really need to be thinking about is how and when do I listen to the right customer? And the right customer is an important part of this. So I'm going to kind of break this question apart a little bit. When I think about the right customer, first and foremost, I would say you enjoy working with them. As a business, you enjoy working with that customer. They also enjoy working with you or with your product. And tied into that, they get value from your product. And then lastly, they're profitable for your business. The right customers make you money. Now the first three, those are probably pretty easy for you to understand. You kind of intuitively know what customers come back and who you enjoy working with. The fourth one might be a little trickier. You may not know exactly who's profitable to your business and who's not. And it may seem a little capitalistic or kind of a menacing of oh, these people need to be profitable to me. But it's actually really important that you understand who is profitable for you and who is not. Because often we listen to the loudest voice. And a lot of times that loud voice may not actually be profitable for us. They may actually lose us money, but yet here we're shifting our business to follow that loud voice. And so it's super important to do that analysis and understand who makes money for your business and who doesn't. And also, kind of in that context, the right customer might not be a current customer. It might be a prospective customer. And so looking at your portfolio of your current customers and seeing, okay, what are the attributes here and who's not a current customer that fits this profile of the right customer? And how do I go get them? So when we come back to our question, That's the right customer. And then when we look at when should I listen to the right customer, that's an easy one. It's always and forever. Like, you should always be listening to your customer. And people get caught up in this because, if I said to you, hey, how often are you talking to your customers? Like, how often are you listening to their feedback? Most people will say, oh, I'm always talking to customers. If I said, well, did you talk to any customers last week and get their feedback? Like, I'm not talking about providing service. I'm talking about helping understand from them what their experience is like. Did you talk to any last week? You'd probably say, well, no, I was really busy last week and had a lot of stuff going on. I didn't talk to anyone last week. Well, what about the week before? Oh, well, I had a conference and, when was the last time you talked to a customer? It's actually probably been 6 months. Like, more often than not, that's the situation where we think we're constantly getting feedback. In reality, we're not doing as much as we think. So you can never do enough of talking to the right customer. Now let's talk about the how. That's kind of where I want to focus for the rest of this conversation. How do we talk to customers? Well, we're going to look at this from a concept or a framework called jobs to be done. Now, that terminology may sound a little strange, but as we get into it, I think it'll make more sense. So this was kind of invented or brought to the business world by a professor at Harvard Business School named Clayton Christensen, an incredible innovator. And let's dive into the concept. I'll give you some examples to help it make sense. So if you had stark white walls in your house and you wanted to paint those walls, what would you do? You'd probably hop on Google, you'd search for a painter, look at reviews, call them, they come out, give you a quote, and you'd hire a painter to paint your walls. You have a job of needing the walls painted, and you hire a painter to do that job. Likewise, if you had an appliance breakdown, I'm actually right in the middle of this. My refrigerator's running hot as we speak, a little stressful, and I'm trying to find an appliance repair person, actually harder than you'd think. But you would call an appliance repair technician to come out and to fix your refrigerator. You have a job to be done of a broken appliance, and you hire the technician to come do that job. In the context of contract work and construction and things like that, terminology makes sense. But let's take that same concept and apply it to every product or service that a customer experiences. Every customer is hiring a product to do a job. To give you another example, if I wanted to put nails into a wall, what do I need to do it? Well, I need a hammer, right? I'm going to hire a hammer to do the job of getting the nail into the wall. There's a lot of hammers out there, and there could be the right hammers and the wrong hammers. Like, if I'm trying to put that small nail into the wall, sledgehammer is probably the wrong tool to do the job. Probably bust a big hole in your wall. The tack hammer might be too small and couldn't get the nail in. Depending on the type of nail, the type of wall, would determine the right tool for the job. So you're hiring this product, the hammer, to do the job. Well, I don't think the actual job to be done here is to get the nail in the wall, because I don't know many people that decorate their house with nails all over the wall. So digging deeper, the actual job to be done in this case is to put a picture on the wall. So now when you step back and look at that, well, wait a second. If the job to be done is not to put a nail on the wall, it's to put a picture on the wall, depending on the size of the picture, the weight, there could be some other options for a solution. Like, maybe a nail is not the right tool or the right tool to hire for the job. There could be the Velcro or the command strips or things to hold it up. So when you look at it from that framework, you really get to the core need that customer has so that you can align the right product or solution or experience to fulfill that need. Let's talk about another example. Aubuchon is heavily on the East Coast, so I don't know how many have heard of it, but it's a sandwich shop. It started actually in the 70s as a bread shop. Was bought by a man named Ronald Shake in the early 80s, and it was kind of struggling. Like, they were selling bread. He actually bought it on the brink of bankruptcy. So he owned it, he was operating the shop, selling the bread. It was a French bakery. And he was doing okay. He was in Faneuil Hall in Boston, tourist area, but also a lot of businesses, kind of white collar type businesses, people looking to get food quickly. They don't have a lot of time. And I sell him his bread. And he noticed this gentleman, and this gentleman came in and did this a couple of times. This gentleman came in, he bought a baguette. He then went over to the kind of back corner, sat at a little table. He cut the baguette open. He pulled his backpack up, pulled out some meat and some cheese. He put it on the baguette, and he made a sandwich. And he sat and he just quietly ate his sandwich. And Ron saw this and was like, oh my gosh, like this man has a need and I'm only partially fulfilling the need. Like maybe there's an opportunity here. So in a pretty dramatic fashion, that night he overhauled his menu, he got some meat and some cheese, and he opened up the next day serving sandwiches. And at the time, like fast casual wasn't a thing. There were sit-down restaurants and there was like fast food, and he opened up as this kind of fast casual, kind of fresh, healthy sandwich shop. And within a half hour of him opening, the word had spread and he had a line out the door and around the corner. People loved it. Since then, Aubuchon has grown to 200 stores and had great success. So he discovered this job to be done by observing and watching the behavior of his customers. A customer that never would have come up and said, hey, why don't you start serving meat and cheese? Like, I want a sandwich. The customer wasn't articulating his job to be done. The customer knew what he needed and wanted and just was kind of quietly taking care of business, and Ron was paying attention. So similar experience for us at Weave. As was mentioned, I run the product team at Weave, and we very closely watch the interactions and behavior with our product. Well, one of our main features is texting. We have a messaging tool that allows businesses using their business phone number to text and communicate with their customers. And what we saw was behavior of office workers actually using our texting platform to text another coworker, maybe in the back office, or to let them know that a customer patient had arrived or they wanted to coordinate lunch. And this was like kind of shocking to us. We didn't anticipate this usage. And using our messaging tool for this kind of inter-office communication wasn't necessarily a great experience, but they had this need. So as we dug in, we found all these kind of reasons why they would want to communicate that way. And so we came up with Team Chat that allowed office workers using Weave to easily communicate using our tool in something built for inter-office communication. And within the first week of launching it, we had almost 60% adoption of customers using it. So clearly there was a job to be done, a need that was being unmet. And when we were able to match up a solution, people used it heavily and loved it. So let's come back to how to listen to customers. I've given you a couple examples of looking for these kind of unintended ways that people use your product and experience your business. And instead of looking at those as kind of anomalies or ignoring them, lean into them. Like embrace when people try to do things different than what you intended, because there could be a huge opportunity for you to pivot or to change your experience or change your product for a whole new opportunity. So let's get a little more tactical about how do we actually listen to customers. So I'm going to tell you another story. This is about a CAT scan machine. An industrial designer named Doug Dietz worked for GE, and he designed this CAT scan machine. And it won all kinds of design awards. I mean, it was an amazing piece of equipment and machinery, and he was very proud of it. And when he would travel around for work, he would stop into hospitals that had his product, and he would observe and watch and see how it went. Well, on one particular day, he stopped into a pediatric hospital to observe. And he saw the child, the sick child that needed to get the scan done, coming down the hall with his parents. And the child was very anxious and clearly upset. As he came into the room, the child just lost it, like super upset, very anxious, did not want to get on the table. And the technician actually had to sedate the child to get him to calm down and get him on the table. The parents were upset, the child was upset, the technician, I mean, it was just kind of a mess. And Doug, that designed this amazing machine, just kind of stood back in horror, like, oh my gosh. So they did the scan, the family left, and Doug went to the technician and said, oh my gosh, like that was a horrible experience. Like, how often does this happen? How often do you have to sedate these children? And he said, the technician said, probably about 9 out of 10 times I have to sedate these kids so they'll be calm enough that I can get them on the table and do the CAT scan. And he said, I hate it. Like, this is the worst part of my job. And Doug's heart was just broken. Like, here he thought he was providing all this value, and he was actually creating a horrible experience for everybody involved. Well, right at that same time period, Doug was taking executive education classes at the Stanford Design School, where they teach about user-centered design and kind of these same concepts I'm talking about, jobs to be done. So he said, I'm going to take these things I'm learning and put them into practice. So he took his team and they went to go figure out a solution. And following these concepts of user-centered design and jobs to be done, they went to talk to the customers, talk to these patients, the kids and their families. But they didn't just send a survey or ask questions like, hey, how can we improve the experience? Because these families and these kids, they don't know how to articulate how he could improve it, but they know what they need. And he went into their homes. And this is an example of what the wall would look like of a sibling of the sick child. So the wall of the healthy child. And they have awards, and they're playing sports, and they're swimming, and they're riding goats, and they're having all these incredible experiences. And then he goes into the room of the sick child that needed the CAT scan machine, and it's sterile. And there's some books, and it's not that it's unhappy, but it lacks that same kind of excitement. And then he watched these children, and these children, they were the ones looking out, watching their friends and their siblings play and have adventures and have experiences, but they were inside because their immune systems were low, or they were sick, and they couldn't have these same experiences. And what he discovered in this research of being with his customers, with his patients, is that these kids lacked adventure. Their job to be done was they wanted adventure in their lives. They wanted to have new experiences, just like the other kids their age. And so understanding this job to be done, he then solutioned a way to solve that. He didn't make any mechanical changes to his product, but he created an experience around the existing CAT scan machine. So these kids would get a packet in the mail or into their hospital room that would tell them that Captain Blackbeard wanted them up on the top decks at 0900 hours, and they were going on a treasure hunt adventure. And these kids were excited, and they show up and they see this room all decorated like a pirate ship, and they jump up on the table willingly. And then they get into the machine, and instead of these scary sounds that kind of happen naturally with the machine, it was all part of the experience. They had hit rough waters, they had hit rocks, and it was fun for them. The sedation rates went down from 90% to under 5% of having to sedate these children. And the kids were asking to come back. Like they wanted to come back and have the experience again. And he rolled out other experiences, underwater adventure, jungle adventures, other adventures for these kids, and had incredible results. But he got there because he went to where his customers are. He understood their needs, he empathized with what they were experiencing, and discovered a job to be done that no one was going to articulate from a survey, no one was going to articulate from even just sitting down and asking the standard market research type questions. He had to really understand their environment. So let's take this concept of jobs to be done, this idea of really getting with your customer and watching kind of how they behave. And what if you took that and you applied it to your business? Think of a waiting room. Like, what if you viewed that through the jobs to be done lens? When people come into your waiting room, what is their job to be done? What is their emotion? What are they experiencing? Are they anxious because of what's about to happen in their visit? Are they bored? Are they stressed because they're missing work? Or they've got other things going on in their life that they had to make time out for to be there in your office or in your business? And how could you solve that? Like, once you understand that job to be done, how could you change the experience to impact every piece of how they experience your business? And in that context, I want to mention, I use the word product. And as you think of, okay, what is my business? What is my product? Like, at the heart of your product is the experience that people have with your company and with your business and with your practice. It's everything from when they first look you up on a website, to when they call your business, to when they schedule an appointment, to when they get a reminder, to when they come into your waiting room, they have the service, whatever it might be. If you come to a dentist, the experience with the dentist, with the doctor, that is all part of your product. The follow-up, the prescription you might write, all of that is your product. And every touch point, there's different slices of the job to be done that you can fulfill and optimize. But you have to understand how these customers experience you and experience that product. Another example, as we use this lens to think about our business, what about communication? Like, we kind of take it for granted that, there's the basic ways through phone and through kind of the standard mechanisms of communicating, but how do customers actually want to hear from us? What kind of experience do they want to have? What's happening if we text them, what's happening in the context of their life when they receive that message? And how can we tailor the communication and technology to help fulfill that job to be done? So to wrap it up, in summary, I want to leave you with 2 key points. The right customers know what they need. They do. They know it. They just don't know how to say it. They don't know how to articulate it. So your job is to discover that need through everything we talked about, through empathy, through watching how they behave and getting into their environment and kind of looking through the world through their eyes, discovering the job to be done, and then consistently fulfilling it better than anyone else. Like that is where innovation wins. It's not about dreaming up some new kind of crazy idea. It's about understanding the customer's need and fulfilling it consistently better than anybody else. And when you do that, customers will have a phenomenal experience with your business, with your product, and they'll come back again and again. Thank you.